Welcome to the Demystify Technology podcast from the Reform Group.
Typically, you go through the due diligence process. What's the world of private equity?
Right. Can't wait. Demystify it.
Hello, Alan.
Hello, Jim. We're back.
Back to demystifying technology. What technology will we demystify today?
Well, we're going to hit with SalesForce today, I think, because it came up last week.
I don't know what polite conversations you engage in, but at what conversations does SalesForce come up?
Yeah, my small talk really needs a lot of work, I'm going to be honest with you. Last week, we had the honor of co-sponsoring the ACG conference down here in Richmond.
That was a pleasure.
It was fun. So it was basically, I think it was about 130 private equity people and investment people all descended on Richmond to network and talk and get to know about things.
So is Richmond now owned by a consortium of 130 private equity firms?
I was surprised that there was that many, to be honest with you. But it was quite interesting. I did bump into a number of people that I had met in my previous life, so that was good.
And we hosted a dinner for several of these private equity firms, and we had some very interesting conversations. And as you mentioned, the topic of SalesForce came up during those conversations.
Yes, and I think what we're going to hit today is effectively, let's talk about what SalesForce is and what isn't. I think through our small talk, which really, we need to go back to weather. I mean, there's so much weather going on at the moment with the hurricanes, etc., that this should be an easy lead-in. But no, I still get SalesForce. Where do we get to our NetSuite one? But anyway, SalesForce was basically the misconceptions that people were thinking in and around SalesForce. And I thought this would make a wonderful topic to talk about, given that we're trying to demystify technology.
When I hear SalesForce, I hear a myriad of different perspectives on what SalesForce is and how it's utilized. And I kind of liken it back to the days of the enterprise software solutions that were monolithic, huge, difficult to integrate, impossible to manage, and required a whole heap and pile of hardware to deploy.
You just need a browser.
Really?
That's it.
How long has Salesforce been around?
Salesforce has been around a long time now. I would need to check back, but I'm thinking maybe 20 odd years.
Okay.
It's definitely old. And most people think about Salesforce as a utility or a platform to help with sales.
It would make sense.
Clues in the name. And they automatically think that Salesforce is just a CRM, a customer relationship manager.
I fell into that for quite a while, primarily because of the name. And I would say that the majority of the organizations I've interacted with have used it strictly as a CRM.
And it does a phenomenal job at that. I mean, really, when it comes down to managing your sales contacts, your tasks, your associations, integrating with various third parties to see where your sales leads are and just general conversations, it really did set the stall out for others to figure out what a CRM is. But it's a lot more than that. And to sort of discount Salesforce as just a CRM is missing what Salesforce's original goal was, which was effectively to put a database in the cloud.
Well, and I knew my interpretation had to be narrow, given the number of adopters there are of this software and this technology. When you think about this as a product that's been around for 20 years, in the last 10 years, it has just skyrocketed. What would you attribute that to?
I think the fact that the web has now become much more pervasive, the web has now become more accepted, that you would run things like your email, your documents, so things like G Suite, Office 365, everything can now be done through a browser. We're no longer installing apps like we used to in our world, and we're no longer running internal servers like we used to. I mean, who still runs a file server these days when you've got the things like, Google Drive, Box.com, Dropbox.com. You don't have to, and even Amazon, you don't have to worry about disk space anymore. The security and all that sort of stuff is, you got to make a real strong business case for still running and managing your own Windows servers or Linux servers in-house to manage the back office. And as we look at that adoption rate, then other services like accounting software, which is NetSuite, etc., and a plethora of other options, which we'll discuss at a later podcast. And Salesforce CRM is your classic sort of big organization needs to track where sales are coming and going. It's a natural browser-based application.
Do you see Salesforce as like a cloud-based solution gateway drug? As you see more people adopt Salesforce, do they begin to look internally and say, what are all these other things we have sitting on servers right now, and why isn't that stuff in the cloud?
Oh, you've got to hand off to Mark Benioff, who came up with this in the first place, that it truly is the gateway drug. You're right. It's a Trojan horse, because as our old colleague Klaus would say, sales solve everything. And if a company is based around sales, then the more information that you've got around a customer and what they're doing. So yes, a CRM will tell you how a customer is progressing through, say, a sales channel. But once you've landed that customer, what other upsell opportunities are there? What other things are they doing with your service and your product that you can feed back to Salesforce, so your frontline salespeople are becoming so. In many respects, that's just like a Trojan horse, because now you've got Salesforce being your dashboard to your customers.
You mentioned dashboard, and I've engaged in conversations with people who are utilizing Salesforce, and they refer to it almost as if it's their analytic data store, their data warehouse. Is it really a standard, usable database or data warehouse that people can do reporting off of?
In short, yes. Now, it's not quite what you would remember or know as a relational database in many respects. It's more based around the concept of objects, and objects have keys and values inside of those objects. So you've got your classic account object and contact object that Salesforce basically boots up as part of your schema, if you will. So underneath the covers, it literally is just a series of objects that are all related to each other based on various IDs and keys, etc. They have built a CRM UI, if you will, on top of those objects, so that what you're interacting with at Salesforce now is effectively just a whole series of web forms to update and view data inside of those objects. Nothing more complicated than that. There's a bit of workflow around it in order to allow the CRM type functionality to exist. But underneath the covers, it truly is just a database. And one interacts with that database through the Salesforce UI or through their API. And that's where Salesforce really made a huge inroads in order to getting it into other parts of the ecosystem, i.e., I have this database in the cloud, but the web UI is not the only way to get to it. I can get to it through deep API integration, so I can now integrate it with everything that my ecosystem would have been doing. So anything that you would have done effectively an ETL type process to load data or to move data around, there's just API calls now in and out of Salesforce.
Now, I may have a lot of...
Richmond's Finest is coming through. I don't know if we'll hear that, but I really do love to see a fire engine coming through. I get those backdraft moments.
Well, and this one didn't throw candy. I guess it's not really a parade. You reference how you can plug this platform in, this very flexible API solution. They have what they call the app cloud, right?
Yes.
And is that your entrance into that environment? Is that the gateway?
It could be as well. So really, Salesforce has this thing called force.com, where you host, and some more Richmond's Finest are coming through here, where you have effectively, you can let Salesforce host your application. So if you need to customize or have a custom application for whatever it is, web-based application, generally speaking, that falls down into the mobile as well, then they will host it. So again, a way for you to get out of the server business, a way for you to get out of the having to manage databases, managing servers, managing workflow, managing all that stuff. It's a complete ecosystem in the cloud. And force.com is quite a big environment inside of there.
Okay. And then I know we talked about the dashboard piece. They also have the analytics cloud, which is their BI solution into that environment.
I think this is where Salesforce as a whole has to be respected, because now they're getting to a stage of they're buying so many other companies to bolt onto their platform. So BI is one. We've seen email as another. We've seen integration with Google, Dropbox, and all those other things going now deeper. So they truly are wanting to be the one-stop shop of what can we do with this database, what can we do with this stuff. And in order for you to be able to utilize the full suite of what's really a rich API-driven database underneath the covers, they're trying to get you to stop thinking of Salesforce as just a CRM.
Well, and it makes a lot of sense because when you start thinking about what the CRM does and the service it provides, it's just a natural extension to step into the marketing cloud where it's your entire digital presence and your campaign management process, as well as on the back end having the analytic cloud to understand how this stuff is performing. And I think they've been very farsighted in that. And what amazes me is how quickly they're able to pull these components together and plug them into this platform and then offer them out as a product.
Yeah, and I think in our world, we see that Salesforce is popular with both private equity and C-suite people because the accessibility of data is just within a browser. There's an awful lot of pre-canned reports, pre-canned dashboards that Salesforce gives you out of the box that is good enough to start a conversation, or it's good enough to get a little bit of visibility into the company or the portfolio company without being intrusive and making somebody, hand crank that Excel report that has to be delivered at the end of every week.
You're talking about my job security?
I'm sorry.
It makes me feel very uncomfortable at this moment. As we talk about the analytic offering and you trying to put me out of a job so that I don't have, nobody needs me to crank a handle to generate an interactive data visualization. The thing that most concerns me is how easily can I integrate other data sources into this or pull data out to support other initiatives? How flexible is this platform in that regard?
So logistically, what we've seen a lot in the past is you usually take data out of Salesforce and put it back into a traditional warehouse or BI platform. So you're not out of a job yet. So hang fire there with those fancy pie charts, and I'm poking the bear there with the pie chart.
I'm looking down the barrel of retirement. So let's keep it going, man.
So it's very common to export data out of Salesforce, put it into there, both also for that little extra comfort of having that external backup of all the data. But effectively, it's more common to pull data out of Salesforce and put it more into a traditional database or data store that the likes of Tableau, MicroStrategies, Power BI, etc., can hit that in a more relational manner as opposed to having to go through this object-type database structure. So that I don't think see that stopping anytime soon. I think it also allows for organizations to triangulate that data with data that's not in Salesforce. So it's much easier to do that. So Salesforce kind of needs all the data in Salesforce in order to be able to utilize all their tools better, which as a business, they kind of want you to have everything in there.
Well, and as a business owner, I would want it all in there. I don't want to have to facilitate multiple platforms just to run my business. I feel like it's starting to be the realized promise of an enterprise software solution. I think it's also important for us to express that we are not on retainer by Salesforce. It sounds like we're providing a glowing endorsement for these guys, but it's hard to get into a conversation with anybody today who isn't already in Salesforce or is looking at CRM or any other solution without considering Salesforce.
Yeah, because it's just been so easy to get started. In many respects, the CRM side of the fence has been the true candy to which to bring you into the store. I mean, it has been beautiful. It's not the prettiest of UIs, it's not the sexiest of workflows, but it gets the job done. And in many respects, it has become the industry standard. So therefore, if one does go and look at other alternatives, and usually those other alternatives is based down on cost, because Salesforce is not a cheap solution, particularly when you're rolling it out to a large organization, right. Which is another reason why to pull the data back, because not everybody needs a Salesforce license just to go and look at a report. Bring that data back, do something with it at this side of the fence. But I think Salesforce will eventually start to envelope the services such as like G Suite and Office 365. So as soon as they start offering email and sort of true back office facilities like calendaring and file server stuff, Salesforce will become a mighty force, literally, to be reckoned with. But until such days, it's sort of more taking the back end side of the fence and letting G Suite and Office 365 take more of the sort of desktop-y email calendaring sort of stuff.
Well, I'm glad we've recorded this podcast, so when they become the overlords, then we'll be on record as having
endorsed them.
We welcome your reign. Alan, this has absolutely been informative for me. I feel like I have a better handle on what it is that Salesforce, quote, unquote, the CRM really is, and to some extent what it isn't. I would encourage our listeners to head to McLaurin.group, check out our other podcasts.
Yes, and please be sure to go and review and rate us on iTunes and Google Play. And the more listeners we get, the more Jim can go into retirement with a happy face. Over now.
Bye now.